Hello, Mark and Phoebe from Freshman Speaking and Listening class. Oh, yes, I just changed my name yesterday. My student number is 36. Today I'm going to read a speech from Tasos Frantzolas. Everything you hear on film is a lie. I want to start by doing an experiment. I'm going to play 3 videos of rainy day, but I've replaced the audio of one of the videos. And instead of the sound of rain, I've added the sound of bacon frying. So I want you to think carefully which one's a key with the bacon is. Rain falls, rain falls, rain falls. Alright, actually, I lied. They're all bacon. Bacon sizzles and blows. My point here isn't really to make you hungry every time you see a rainy scene, but it's to show that our brains are conditioned to embrace the lies. We're not looking for accuracy. So on the subject of deception, I wanted to quote one of my favorite authors. In the Decade of Lying, Oscar Wilde established the idea that all bad art comes from copying nature and being realistic. And all great art comes from lying and deceiving and telling beautiful and true things. So when you are watching a movie and the phone rings, it's not actually ringing, it's being adding later in post-production in the studio. So all of the sounds you hear are fact. Everything apart from dialogue is fact. When you watch a movie and you see a bird flapping its wings flap, they haven't really recorded a bird. It sounds a lot more realistic if you record a sheet of a shaking kitchen gloves. Flaps. The burning of cigarette up close. Cigarette burns. It actually sounds a lot more authentic if you take a small saran wrap bowl and release it. A saran wrap bowl being released. Punches? Punch. Oops, let me play that again. Punch. That's often done by sticking the knife in vegetables, using usually cabbage. Cabbage stabbed with a knife. The next one is breaking bones. Bones break. Well, no one was really harmed. It's actually breaking celery or frozen lettuce. Breaking frozen lettuce or celery. Laughter. Making the right sounds is not always as easy as a trip to the supermarket and going to the vegetable section, but it's often a lot more complicated than that. So let's reverse, engineer together the creation of a sound effect. One of my favorite stories comes from Frank Serafine. He's a contributor to our library and a great sound designer for Tron and Star Trek and others. He was part of the Paramount team that won the Oscar for Best Sound for The Hunt for Red October in this Cold War classic. In the 90s, they were asked to produce the sound of the propeller of the submarine. So they had a small problem. They couldn't really find a submarine in the West Hollywood. So basically, what they did is they went to a French swimming pool and Frank performed a cannonball or bomber. They placed an underwater mic and an overhead mic outside the swimming pool. So here's what an underwater mic sounds like. Underwater plunge, aiding the overhead mic. It sounds a bit like this. Water splashes. So now they took the sound and pitched it 1 octave down, sort of like slowing down the record. Water splashes at lower octave. And then they remove a lot of the high frequencies. Water splashes and pitch it down another octave. Water splashes at lower octave. And then they added a little bit of the splash from the overhead microphone. Water splashes. And by looping and repeating the sound, they got this. Propeller chants. So creativity and technology put together in order to create an illusion that we are inside a submarine. But once you have recreated yourselves and you have synced them to the image, you want those sounds to live in a world of story. And one of the best ways to do that is add reverb. So this is the first audio tool I want to talk about. Reverberation or reverb is the persistence of the sound after the original sound has ended. So it's sort of like all the reflections from the materials, the objects, and the words around the sound. Take, for example, the sound of a gunshot. The original sound is less than half a second long. Gunshot, by adding reverb, we can make it sound like it was recorded inside the bathroom. Gunshot, reverse in bathroom, or like it was recording inside a chapel or a church. Gunshot reverse church. Or in a cajon, gunshot reverse in cajon. So reverb gives us a lot of information about the space between the listener and the original sound source. If the sound is the test, then reverb is sort of like the smell of the sound. But reverb can do a lot more. Listening to the sound with a lot less reverberation, then the on-screen action is going to immediately signify to us that we are listening to the commentator, to the objective narrator that's not participating in the on-screen action. Also, emotionally intimate moments in cinema are often heard with zero reverb, because that's how it would be sound if someone was speaking inside our ear. So on the completely other side, adding a lot of reverb to a voice is going to make us think that we are listening to a flashback, or perhaps that we are inside the head of a character, or that we are listening to the voice of God, or even more powerful in film, Morgan Freeman. Laughter. So, but what are some other tools or hacks the sound designers use? Well, here's a really big one. It's silence. A few moments of silence are going to make us pay attention. And in the Western world, we are not really used to verbal silences. They're considered awkward or rude, so silence preceding verbal communication can create a lot of tension. But imagine a really big Hollywood movie where it's full of explosion of automatic guns. Loud stops being loud anymore after a while. So in a yin-yang way, silence needs loudness, and loudness needs silence for either of them to have any effect. But what does silence mean? Well, it depends how it's used in each film. Silence can place us inside the head of a character or provoke thought. We often relate silences with contemplation, meditation, being deep in thought. But apart from having one meaning, silence becomes a blank canvas upon which the viewer is invited to paint their own thought. But I want to make it clear, there's no such thing as silence. And I know this sounds like the most pretentious TikTok statement ever. But even if you were to enter the room with zero reverberation and zero external sounds, you will still be able to hear the pumping of your own blood. And in cinema, traditionally, there was never a silent moment because of the sound of the projector. And even in today's Dolby world, there's not really any moment of silence if you listen around you. There's always some sort of noise. Now, since there's no such thing as silence, what do filmmakers and sound designers use? Well, as a synonym, they often use ambiences. Oh, ambiences are the unique background sounds that are specific to each location. Each location has a unique sound, and each room has a unique sound, which is called room tone. So here's a recording of a market in Morocco. Voices, music. And here's a recording of Times Square in New York. Traffic sounds, car horns, voices. Room tone is the addiction of all the noises inside the room, the ventilation, the heating, the fridge. Here's a recording of my apartment in Brooklyn. You can hear the ventilation, the boiler, the fridge, and the street traffic. And ambiences work is the most primal way they can speak directly to our brain subconsciously. So birds chirping outside your window may indicate normality. Perhaps because as a species, we have been used to that sound every morning for millions of years. Birds chomp. On the other hand, industrial sounds have been introduced to us a little more recently. Even though I really like them personally, they've been used by one of my heroes, David Lynch, and his sound designer, Alan Splitt. Industrial sounds often carry negative connotations. Machine noises. Now, sound effects can tap into our emotional memory, and occasionally they can be so significant that they become a character in a movie. The sound of thunder may indicate divine intervention or anger. Thunder. Church bells can remind us of the passing of time or perhaps our own mortality. Bells ring, and breaking of glass can indicate the end of the relationship or friendship. Glass breaks. Scientists believe that dissonant sounds, for example, brass or wind instruments, play very loud, may remind us of animal house in nature and therefore create a sense of irritation or fear. Brass and wind instruments play. So now we've spoken about on-screen sounds, but occasionally the sounds of the sound, the source of the sound cannot be seen. That's what we call off-screen sounds or acousmatic. Well, the term acousmatics comes from Pythagoras in ancient Greece, who used to teach beyond a veil or curtain for years. And revealing himself to his disciples, I think the mathematician and philosopher thought that in that way his students might focus more on the voice, its words and its meaning, rather than the visual of him speaking. So sort of like the Wizard of Oz of a 1984's Big Brother, separating the voice from its source, separating cause and effect sort of creates a sense of ubiquity or panoptism, and therefore authority. There's a strong tradition of acousmatic sound. Gnomes and monsters in Rome and Venice used to sing in rooms up in galleries close to the ceiling, creating the illusion that we are listening to angels up in the sky. Richard Wagner famously created a hidden orchestra that was placed in a pit between the stage and the audience. And one of my heroes, his a faint twin, famous hit in dark corners of clubs. I think what all these masters knew is that by hiding the source, you create a sense of mystery. This has been seen in cinema over and over with Hitchcock and Ridley Scott in Aliens. Hearing a sound without knowing its source is going to create some sort of tension. Also, it can minimize certain visual restrictions. The director have and can show something that wasn't there during filming. And if all this sounds a little theoretical, I wanted to play a little video. Toy squeeze, typewriter, drums, ping pong, knives being sharpened, record scratches, saw cuts, woman screams. What I'm sort of trying to demonstrate with this tour is that sound is a language. It can triggered by transporting us geographically. It can change the mood, it can set a pace, it can make us laugh, or it can make us scared. On a personal level, I fell in love with that language a few years ago and somehow managed to make it into some sort of procession. And I think with our work through the sound library, we're trying to kind of expand the vocabulary of that language. And in that way, we want to offer the right tools to sound designers, filmmakers, and video game and app designers to keep telling even better stories and creating even more beautiful lives. So thanks for listening. Applause.